So we're in the car. What's the name of the town we were in?
Hillerød.
Say that again?
Hillerød.
Okay, we're there.
We're there.
And we're driving back to Copenhagen.
Yes, we are.
And
København.
that was even better. Hi, everybody. I couldn't say that to save my... Hi, everybody. It's Todd Conklin. This is the Pre-Accident Investigation Podcast. You're in for a treat today. Oh, yes, you are. Today's podcast is interesting and fun. But, I try to make most of them interesting and fun. Our guest today is Professor Sidney Dekker. And you know him. And Mr. Dekker and I were traversing through Denmark last week and talking about his new movie, and I slipped the recorder on. And so you'll have to forgive me. There's a little bit of automotive noise in the podcast, but that's all right because it's pretty much what it's like to sit in the car. And man, we had a good time. We were over there hanging out with an organization that's really, really moving along on their Safety Differently view. It's fun to watch them. They're quite remarkable. They're in the biomedicine field, and they're great leadership, great people, amazing human performance people. This whole thing was really fun, and we got to spend a couple days together, and it was great. Both of us were at different forms of jet lag because both of us had traveled afar to be there, and then we both had adventures afterwards. So it's quite a fun podcast, actually. Had a great meal that night where we had fish and chips, but I think the Danish fish and chips are quite a bit. How do I want to say the best? I was about to say something bold. The best fish and chips I've ever had were in Alaska because it was halibut, and that was amazing. Denmark was right up there because you got lobster, you got halibut, and you got another kind of fish that I can't remember, but it was really good. And it's battered and fried, so everything's good then. It works out perfectly. But no, we had a great time. All is well here. How is your summer going? Is it going well? It's exciting, isn't it? Lots of stuff going on. You got big plans? I have all sorts of scheming things going on. And I'm going to see a lot of you this summer, so that'll be fun. Hopefully we can hang out and have some fun and talk about the world as we understand it and know it. For me, life's pretty grand. I don't really have any. This is good, too. I'm pleased to report this. I don't have any real stories. Like, I don't have any adventures on airplanes. There's been plenty of those without me. I don't really have any adventures in grocery stores, where I do all my great sociological experimentation. That is my microcosm. That's my laboratory, if you will, for all experimentation. Mostly I'm just kind of clunking along, making sure things are happening and trying to be places on time and look as presentable as I possibly can. And reading and writing and doing all that stuff and trying to farm out these podcasts. It's a big deal, this podcast you listen to, that I'm in your ears a couple times a week if you're a good listener. And even if you aren't a good listener, just once is enough. But we have over 500,000 downloads, which, to be really honest with you, it's not that it's not unbelievable to me. I believe it. And it's not unimaginable to me. I just never imagined it. I don't know what I thought, but I never thought this many people would listen, nor would this many people be on the podcast. That's really pretty special too. And that's kind of fun. So do me a favor, now that we're up in the big numbers, that's good. Try to get other people to listen and pass it along if you think it'll help. I think it helps. Oh, a big car just drove by. That was cool. I think it helps because it builds community, and it allows us to have conversations with each other, but not have to hang out with each other, because for some of us, that's probably a good thing. I'm especially fond of the fact that the community we're building is becoming larger and better, and that's a big part of what happens. That's the whole goal for the podcast. So if I haven't said it, thank you. If you're a new listener, you're more than welcome, and there's a whole bunch of these you can listen to, and you can get them all. They're all free and available. And if you're a longtime listener, thanks for hanging in there and not getting bored, because you can get bored. I mean, I try to keep it unboring, but I don't know how good I am at that. But we can talk about that later as well. So now let's talk about today's podcast, because we want to talk a little bit about it before and a little bit after it. But in case you don't know, Sidney Dekker has another movie, documentary that he put out, and this one is specifically on one topic, just culture. In fact, the name of the movie is Just Culture, the Movie. It's a very creative name. I'm quite impressed with that. And this movie focuses specifically on one organization. So I thought if you want to see this movie, it's available on YouTube, so it's easy to find. The best place I can direct you to is SidneyDekker.com. SidneyDekker.com, and that's spelled COM, in case you didn't get that part. And it's available. Just go to Just Culture, click Just Culture. It'll take you right to the movie. You can pick it up there. It's free. It's available. You can use it for anything. It's great. I thought I would actually read a little bit. I try not to do that to you guys, but read a little bit from the webpage, because I think the webpage, it's really brief, but I think the description's a pretty good description of what's going on. And oddly enough, we didn't talk about we talked about the movie, but we didn't talk about the description of the movie. So I thought it was a good fit. So here's from his webpage. A just culture is a culture of trust, learning, and accountability. In the wake of an incident, a restorative just culture asks, who are hurt, what do they need, and whose obligation is it to meet that need? A just culture doesn't dwell on questions of rules or violations or consequences. Instead, it gathers those affected by the incident and collaborates on collectively addressing the harms and needs created by it. In a way, that is respectful to all the parties involved in whatever happened. It holds people accountable by looking forward to what must be done to repair, to heal, and to prevent. This film, Just Culture the Movie, documents the amazing this film documents the amazing transformation, which is not the word transportation, in one specific organization, Mercy Care, a National Health Service mental health trust in the United Kingdom. Only a few years ago, blame was common and trust was scarce. Dismissals were frequent. Caregivers were suspended without a clear idea of what they might have done wrong. Mercy Care's journey towards a just and learning culture has repaired and reinvigorated relationships between staffs, leaders, and service users. It's enhanced people's engagement, joint ownership, and sense of responsibility, and it has taken the organization to a place where hurt doesn't get met with more hurt, but in fact with healing. And that is the entire description, except for the part where I said transportation instead of transformation. That was my addition. Sorry. That is what this movie covers, and I think you'll like it. It focuses on one organization, and it really, from a documentary standpoint, tells a story in such a way that really only a documentary can tell it. And that is one of the things that we talk about. So let's jump into the podcast, because I think it's a good time to do that. SidneyDekker.com, if you want to see the movie. If you want to see it before, I'll pause. Ready? Pause. Okay, we're back. But you can also watch it after. There's no spoilers in this interview, so you're going to be fine. So without any further ado, on a motorway in Denmark, this is Todd, that's me, it's Sidney Dekker talking about Just Culture, the movie. Hey, let me set the scene, dear listener. We're traveling in a car, 4 incredibly capable adults between...
Here we go. Hillerød
and
København.
So if you don't know what that means, we're driving into Copenhagen on the way back from doing a really excellent meeting with a really excellent day, talking about the world and the environment and safety differently. Professor Dekker, my friend and amigo, you've got a new movie. Tell me about it, and how can I see it?
It's called Just Culture. It just came out a few weeks ago. It's professionally produced by Griffith University and Right Free Media in Australia. It's a movie that tells the amazing transformation of an organization to a restorative just culture. I made sure that I was able to crowdfunded, and so it's freely available. People don't have to pay. It's on YouTube or also through my website. That's probably easiest. SidneyDekker.com, SidneyDekker.com/just-culture.
How much work is it to do this? How much time does it take you?
An incredible amount of time. For 22 minutes of film, you're working for months. Absolutely months. Yeah. And that's just the planning, the production, the travel, because this actually documents an organization in Liverpool, England. And so we had to go there, get the camera crew over, all of that, which of course is an expensive thing as well to do. So months of planning, organization, setting things up, getting the right people to be involved. And then once you've got all the footage, there's weeks of editing after that.
You don't do you script it, or is it just you shoot it kind of in sort of real life, slice of life cinema?
When it comes to documentary making, there's different schools of thought of how it should be done, obviously, and there's probably listeners who know much more about it than I do. But this one was certainly not scripted. Safety Differently was not scripted either. It had to be organized more tightly because it covers 3 organizations, and that's just a lot of editing and planning and producing. But this one is one organization, and in a sense, we let the story happen and unfold as it did, and we captured as much as we could over the time that we were in Liverpool to capture that transformation.
Did the filmmakers have to become versed in just culture and Safety Differently and kind of the new view, or are they just kind of a naive set of eyes? How's that work?
No, they've become increasingly versed in the ideas that I write about, and so it's like Bill Evans with his drummer. He built up a really good symbiotic relationship, and so my filmmaker has unfortunately just left Australia to move back to his native Norway, and so that relationship is going to be a little harder from here on. But he, and his name is Martin, he was increasingly well attuned to the sorts of things that we needed to capture to get the story, and so he would know where to hunt. And sometimes I would just lose him; he'd be gone, and I'd be somewhere else in this organization, and Martin and his crew was nowhere to be found because they were on the hunt for something that they knew was going to be a good addition to the film. So that's worth gold.
Do you watch you're a part of the editing process, so you watch all the raw footage and help put it together?
No, I'm not, and that is a very strong policy of filmmaking. I think in general that the executive producer is not part of the editing team, because, and particularly not because they're typically my ideas, and so I would be too dominant a voice in that, and so it's I'm at the mercy ultimately of the editor. Then when there is the first narrative cut being shown, right, this is sort of the story we think it tells. That's the first time I get to see it.
What's that like?
Oh, nervous, man.
I would think.
Yeah. You go, whoa, what is it going to be like? I have never been negatively surprised yet. It's always an amazing experience to see the professional hands through which this thing goes, and you go, oh my, you did magic with this, right? So it's almost always good. And then we sharpen the story a little bit, and that's the time in the editing process that I get listened to a little bit.
Do you think you'll make more? Does this feel like something you want to do more of?
I think I'm certainly scoring more views on the films than some of the books sell. So I think in terms of reaching now, this maybe all be people who actually also have the book. I don't know, probably not. But in terms of reaching audiences, yes. In terms of the creative process and the sheer joy of putting together a story, put together the story, but to mediate the story like this is certainly something that gets my creative juices flowing in different ways than writing another book, which of course I'll do that too. But I'll likely make more film.
Okay, pardon the interruption, dear listeners, but let me explain what's happening here because it needs a little bit of definition. I tried to edit it, but it doesn't really work. So we recorded the part you're going to hear now first, and you can tell because the car noise is louder because we're going faster because we're kind of in the rural part of Denmark heading towards Copenhagen. And we got to this ending place, which you'll hear soon. And it's a really good ending place. And so we ended, except that we forgot to tell you how to see the movie and some of the background about the movie. So I put the end at the beginning, in the beginning at the end. But you'll figure it out. It's not really a problem. Sit back and enjoy. Thanks.
I really enjoyed it. And I wondered if I enjoyed it. Well, we can talk about this later, but I liked how it sort of focused on one story. But that's probably getting ahead of ourselves. Talk to us about the new movie. I'm really interested.
So the new movie, well, perhaps you enjoyed it because I'm not in it a whole lot. That was said about the Safety Differently movie, right? Oh, this is finally a place where we don't get Dekker to lecture, but actually see this in action and see other people work on these ideas and produce them in practice. And so the new movie, which you're right, came out a few weeks ago, produced by Griffith University and Right Free Media, is called Just Culture. And the story, you're right, is indeed a story of one organization that underwent is a bad passive word, that was able to enact an amazing transformation from a retributive just culture to a restorative just culture. And that transformation has done so many good things for the people in the organization and the people who are the recipients of the services of the organization.
Why these movies? I mean, I understand why that approach is so effective.
Okay, well, I don't know the extent to which it is effective, but what I have found is that a lot more people are not talking about this stuff than are talking about it. And so what's important for me is to get the conversation started in places where people wouldn't necessarily reach for books to enlighten themselves about these sorts of things or get challenged in their thoughts about it, but take it to a place where people might, click through YouTube and see, hang on, wow, I could actually learn something from this, or this is an interesting story. I mean, that's rather why people would watch. Because it's not an instructional video. It's not a video. It's not instructional, and it's not videography. This is filmmaking. It's a story that gets told in a very human and humane way. But we'll get to that in a minute. So why the movies? To add to the repertoire of media through which we can get people engaged and enthused around this conversation. That's the reason.
Which I get that, but one of the things I notice is that as a consumer of this information, I can't help but not identify with the movie differently than I do the books. In a way, it kind of moves it out of, I hate to use this word, but almost an academic discussion to really much more of an emotional discussion. You really feel a part of the story. And that's an amazing part of really what the filmmaker did and how the movie was put together. But I also think it engages people and it asks something different of them as a consumer of this information. And I wonder if it engages them differently emotionally. And I think it's going to be fun to watch because this seems to be a better place to draw people to when you have a discussion around just culture than almost everything else that's out there that talks about it. And I guess I'm interested in, this is a very unique way to do it. It's a really interesting product, and in a way, it's very clever of you. I mean, in a way, I guess I'm kind of proud of you for doing them.
Thank you. That's always good. But I think, Todd, in a way, the story almost tells itself. I mean, that's not to. There's an amazing amount of editing and production work in it, obviously, to make it into the movie that it is. But the emotive value, the way in which it is a story about people, about their intentions, about where their hearts lie, about what they want to achieve and what they want to be remembered for, how they want to contribute to a world with just a little bit less suffering for their fellow human beings. That type of story can tell itself in ways that cannot be made to fly off the pages of a book. Now, of course, there is a silent hope within me that if people would watch this, that they go, hang on, this is actually really interesting stuff. Can I learn something more about this and then engage with the book or the audio book on Just Culture and listen to it and get some more background, more academic, perhaps researchy knowledge behind this idea. And so there is that hope, but it's not necessary because ultimately the recipe for a real just culture is to be human to each other. And as I say somewhere in the movie, I mean, the few snippets that I do get to talk, I think I say something like organizations like this it's a big healthcare organization, by the way, that features in the movie. Sometimes try to protocolize compassion. They sometimes try to put their just culture in 3 steps on a poster on the wall. They try to adopt, buy, purchase, get a consultant to sell them an algorithm through which they then can sort of do justice by algorithm and sort of McDonaldize justice. Give me a little bit of this, some fries to go with it, and bang bang, I'll pay this. That's the account I will pay. And you cannot McDonaldize justice because it won't be just. Well, maybe just for some parties in the organization, but often it becomes an exercise in power. And those who don't have a lot to begin with always lose in that sort of inflicting of justice on each other, imposition of justice on each other.
So this first movie, it's really the second movie, but this first movie around the notion of just culture, it really seems to sort of start a narrative in a different way. I guess if I had to summarize it, I would say when you write words on paper, you own the thoughts. But when you make a movie,
that's good.
You're giving the ownership to the viewer, and they process that information in a way that they take the information and the filters and the biases and whatever they carry with them when they watch a movie. I think it's remarkable in this case that you're sort of leading people to discover for themselves what a just culture looks like.
And that's actually too generous a role you're giving me, because it is not I who's leading people to discover anything about, discover things about just culture. It's the people who tell the stories in the film. And so I think that's what's so powerful about this, is that this is not a programmatic, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is how you create a restorative just culture. You get to learn about people's struggles in being confronted with a culture that was anything but restorative, even though it was making claims that it was a no-blame culture. And you listen to their stories, their insights, and not only that, and that's really powerful about the visual medium, you see their struggles, you see them, you see their hurts, you see how they are affected, even by their own past, dare I call them, misguided managerial interventions or actions that they must have or might have felt pressurized into doing, and then they fess that up. They talk about that. They give a voice to their confusion, their hurt, and the transformation of their own thinking. I think that's what's so powerful, because as you then suggest, viewers can create a relationship between those words being said to them off the screen and the faces they see and their own world, and then take that with them and perhaps change or think differently about how they engage with their colleagues, with their patients, with their workers.
And to me, that's the component. We tease and joke that people don't read, and this is a different medium, and it's an easy way to take this information in. And that's all probably true. But I think more importantly is that what it really does is it, and you're exactly right, the characters of the film encourage you to do some introspective discovery and think about how you think about the notion of justice.
And I think it actually, that's a good point. I think it actually makes identification with characters in the film much easier if you see them struggle and talk to you about this on camera. You go, oh man, I've been there. That's what I said to one of my people at some point. I was pressurized into firing people or standing them down or deactivating their access card or whatever it was on these charges or ideas that people had about what was the right thing to do at the time. I was there. This could have been me, or this was me. And I don't think that it is that easy, particularly not in academic nonfiction writing, for people to create that level of identification.
Right. In fact, I would almost tell you that the goal is to not create that level of identification.
In an academic text.
Yeah, in an academic text.
You can't. The publishers don't like
that. Yeah, they don't want you to. Well, I guess the most important question is what are you getting out of this filmmaking? What are you getting out of the movie on just culture? How's it changed you?
I say, and that's one snippet that's also left in the film. Somewhere I show up for a group of people and I say, it is amazing and powerful. I don't know what adjectives I use, but it's amazing and powerful to see an idea being turned into a reality like this. And for me to be in a group of people, and with a group of people that have taken an idea of restorative just culture, asking questions about who is hurt and what do they need and whose obligation is it to then meet that need and how do we do that as a community, for them to take that idea and turn it into a reality despite the bureaucratic obstacles, despite retributive pressures all around them from society. I think the main thing I take out of that, Todd, is hope, is encouragement, is belief and a faith in the ultimate power of humanity. That if we commit ourselves to reducing pain, hurt, and suffering on each other without silly commitments like, oh, we have a goal 0, because that actually, we know that increases the chance that you'll hurt people. I mean, the research is very clear on that. But no, you reduce suffering by responding compassionately to hurts that may have already occurred or that might occur in the future. To see that play out among people simply by planting a seed with a book and an idea, and a large organization with 9,000 people in it that respond to the needs of hundreds of thousands of people in their community. To see that transformation happen, man, that is so powerful. That is so powerful for them, for the people who are involved with that organization. And yeah, I take so much encouragement and hope and faith out of that for myself. It has meaning. It gives me meaning.
There's something pretty powerful about the phrase, it gives me meaning. That seemed like a really good place to end. I told you that was a really good ending place, which is why I had to kind of scramble things up. What did you think? Does it make you want to see the movie? Because you ought to. It's good. You'll like it. It's good because just culture, by definition, is a little bit woolly. It's a little bit difficult to describe, certainly in terms that engineers would be comfortable with. But that's really not my fear. My fear is because there's a high demand for it, there is becoming a supply available, and a lot of the supply is not very good. In fact, a lot of the just culture stuff I'm seeing is just doing kind of advanced BBS harder. I don't even know how to describe it. So I think the video does the documentary does a really good job in making some points and then showing them in an applied way. I think you'll like it. It's definitely worth 28 minutes. You've got that much time. Although don't watch it while you're driving. That seems stupid. That is a great podcast. Extra big thanks to Cliff and Amy and to Sidney Dekker for being a part of that. Thanks for letting me get that. That was a good thing to get. And thank you for listening, because that's even more important. It would be boring as crap to do this without you. So keep listening and keep doing what you do, because it's hard. Do things that give your life meaning. That's a pretty meaningful way to stop a podcast. Until then, learn something new every single day. I bet you have today. Have as much fun as you can possibly have. And for goodness sakes, be safe. Thanks, Sidney.